Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you already know that's because I make it that way. When my eyes open first thing in the morning, I automatically click in, hey, here we are. It's going to be another groovy day, and 99 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, the whole day is just a groovy day. Something might happen, something might change. I just think back and turn it around. And it's magic. It just works. And it makes for a great life. And I've been doing it for a very long time. And I'm going to tell you, try it. You'll like it. Just like Mikey likes Life Zero. You will dig it. Welcome to Life Master Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. As always, I have my awesome co-host. Notice I didn't say shotgun today.
That's right, you didn't.
Oh, she is
trying hard, right? You've been really thinking about that.
I have to be careful because it's just something that I naturally say, right? We get pre-programmed with these little phrases and we instantly go to them. And I've been working really hard just to say, oh, my awesome co-host. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hello. Very nice. I'm doing well. And it's great to see you and great to have
I noticed that you have this new program. Of course, everyone knows, and if you don't know, if you're just tuning in for the first time, Jackie trains youth, young adults to be speakers and how to find their confidence and find their voice and speak from their heart, all good things about communication. But I just noticed she's got another course. Maybe she's had it for a while. And she's going to be taking youngsters through the creation of a podcast. Did I get that right?
Yes, I've been doing it for a while. It has been a regular part of our curriculum. I'm just using language a little bit differently to see if I can build some interest in that particular thing. Yeah, because we have been podcasting. In fact, we just did 3 of our students did.
So that's part of your main course, though. Is this a specific course just for that?
It's not.
Okay.
And I wasn't even really advertising a course, just changing the wording of the marketing a little bit to test it, to see if that would interest people in maybe thinking, hey, that's because, they say in marketing all the time, provide the outcome. So the outcome of those first 3 units of our curriculum is that your students will have developed 3 episodes of a podcast. And in fact, one of my students is trying really hard to get a hold of LeBron James. Yeah. He wants to interview LeBron James, and I have talked to LeBron James's peeps, and they have promised me that they will pass it on to him, although he's very busy, they say. So we'll see. And then another one of my students wants to interview Meghan Trainor, who is a pop singer. And her peeps have told me the same thing as I've contacted them. It's like, yep, she would love to do these kinds of things. But January's kind of busy, so we'll see. So if anybody out there listening knows LeBron James or Meghan Trainor, let me know.
Or even if anybody listening knows of a youngster who's full of fire and drive, I shouldn't say fire so much, but just drive, and you think they'd be a good little podcaster, you can't, what can I say? You can't buy this kind of training, right? Or this kind of experience.
Well, you do.
Can from Jackie.
It ain't free.
Well, what I'm saying is getting that kind of training. I mean, especially a youngster. Can you imagine if we would have started a podcast when we were in our 20s? I mean, we'd be right up there today with some of the greats.
I know. It's funny because podcasting was sort of this poor man's way of getting their word out for a long time, right? But now all the famous, the rich and famous have their own podcasts now. It's like they caught on and went, oh, maybe I should be doing that.
And, I think about this sometimes because I'm really envious of Coast to Coast. I don't know if you're familiar with that show, but he's been around for a very long time, and he gets into some different subjects, but he's been doing it for a very long time and has talked to so many people and has such a huge history. I always think, Life Mastery Radio should be like Coast to Coast. I guess I got to hold that vision in my mind a little bit more, huh?
Yeah, sure. But it is fun when you think about how much power that gives a young person to converse with other people.
Well,
and if you think about the idols that you had when you were young, and if you'd had a chance to talk to someone that you idolized, how amazing would that have been? And so we've had some pretty amazing people on our show. We've had NFL players come on to the classroom.
I was just going to say,
you've had. And we've had some famous musicians as well. Cool. So sky's the limit. I tell them, dream big, and then we'll see what we can do.
You can find out more. Just Google Jackie Bailey or look for the Speak Feed Lead project. It will take you. She has links. She has this huge web out there that you can just get caught up in and follow them, and you'll go right to her. I want to remind today's listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer, and any links that we talk about. I think we have a book release coming out. More news at 11 on that, but any links that we talk about will be right there on our show page. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter, an awesome newsletter every week. It highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and a blog post about the show. So we have all those shows go up into YouTube. There must be like 300 shows in YouTube, and they're all searchable by topics. You can find some really cool stuff, and I promise you will find some great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Both our books are there. My book, 6 Keys to Life Mastery, and Jackie's book, Self-Centered Leadership. You can see it right there behind her. Links, follow them, read the books, let us know what you think. And I think that's about it, Jackie. Are you ready for the show? Look at our guest. He's just sitting there nice and patient. And
I know.
We're rambling on and back and forth. He's got a big smile on his face. And I think today's guest is your guest, so that means that you have the introduction. Take it away, Jackie.
Yes, I'm delighted to introduce Martin to you. Martin is known as the architect of the Warriors L.I.F.E code. He specializes in helping people frustrated in their life quickly shift their mindset to uncover their greatness so they can live their true potential and enjoy life. Roberta, who is a client of Martin's, who lost her 6-figure job due to COVID, felt very lost. Within a short time of working with Martin, Roberta had direction, focus, and a renewed energy around all the possibilities she could pursue. And she got back on track to enjoy life again. So the key to Martin's success is he's mastered the ability to live incredibly full every day, which he turned into the acronym L-I-F-E, Life, and created the Warriors L.I.F.E code and a coaching program. And he's got these amazing cards, Warrior to Warrior, Warrior to Warrior. These are amazing. Yeah, Todd and I have these. Yay! And so we're going to be talking about that today. And he's got a book coming out within probably a couple of weeks. So we've got a lot to talk about. Martin is going to explode out there on the stage. You're going to be seeing him everywhere. So we are delighted to have him with us today. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Todd. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
Boy, that smile just goes from ear to ear.
Thank you.
And happy belated birthday. You had your birthday a couple weeks ago.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And where in the world are you joining us from, Martin?
I am in the greatest city in the world, Brooklyn, New York.
Wow. Nice.
Somehow or another, everybody has some kind of connection to Brooklyn. So I'm here holding down the fort.
Well, I have a niece named Brooklyn. Does that count?
Named Brooklyn, sure. Okay.
I think I was in boot camp with a couple of guys from Brooklyn. So there's a connection there.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Nice. Cool.
So Martin, give us a little bit of your story. I mean, you came to this you came to this outburst or this realization that life's too short to be all tied up in knots and how can I say, your knickers in a binder? How did you come to that realization?
Well, before I tell you that, first thing is I loved how you started the show. That's the way I start my show, and I use my life, I should say, how you talked about how you start every day with I live incredibly full every day. That's my mantra, similar to what you're talking about. It's the same idea, just different words. And Jackie, I'm sure that LeBron James will probably get back after the season's over. So it's the middle of the basketball season. Yes. So, just to tell you a little bit about my story, let me start when I was younger, when I was 10 years old, because it has an effect that had an effect on me for the next 40 years. So when I was 10, I was walking home from school with one of my 4 older sisters, and we had a tragedy happen. As we were walking home, we saw a school bus stopped in front of our house. I'm like, okay, the school bus is there, and it didn't move. And as we got closer, we realized the bus driver is standing right outside the bus. Oh, this is weird. And as we got even closer, we realized the bus driver was crying. At that moment, my mother comes running out of the house, carrying my 5-year-old brother, Michael, in her arms, jumps in the car and drives away. We come to find out that the bus driver, Michael, got off the bus, dropped something in front of the bus, didn't see it, and the bus driver drove. Well, unfortunately, 4 days later, he succumbed to his injuries and he passed away. And that, till today, it was the most tragic day in my life, the most horrific thing to ever happen to me, because I'm 10 years old here, and I lost my younger brother. I have 4 older sisters, but it was terrible, and it affected us in so many ways. My mother was really sad and distraught for a while, as was my father and my sisters. And for me, at that moment, I told myself a story. Nobody told this to me, but I said it to myself. Imagine a 10-year-old. I'm the only guy. I'm the only son left. It's my job to carry on the legacy of the name, to carry on everything. So I'm going to do whatever my parents need me to do to make them happy. So at that moment, looking back now, it was a defining moment. I became a people pleaser. And over the years, and it took me about 40 years to realize what that really meant. As a people pleaser, I took things personally. I was a control freak, and I had a very short temper. Because think about it, if I'm trying to make everybody happy, I got to make sure everything's going my way. And when it does, I'm going to be upset that nobody's listening to me, and I'm going to lose it, to the point that I would react to pretty much everything, almost to be like an overreact to like a nuclear reactor. And I would leave fallout all over the place. So now I get married, and the same thing. I'm trying to please my wife. I'm trying to please my parents, spinning all these plates. And I rationalize that it's okay because it's all for the greater good. And now looking back, I look at the word rationalize as 2 words, and it's a card in my deck. That's 2 words that I've trademarked. It's rational lies. You lie to yourself that you're doing things that go against what you really believe, because it's rational to do those things, even though deep down inside it's not.
Right. I have a realization that goes right along with that, is organizing circumstances to fit the situation, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. And if you think back, that will drive a person just, well, how can I say it? Bat blank crazy.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And so that's the way I lived my life for the next 40 years.
Right.
Yeah. And then here comes 2008. For the 4 or 5 years before that, my wife and I were working on a project to build a tennis center and health club. And that came about because she said to me one day, "You're just closing a business. And, I don't want you sitting around doing nothing," even though we had residual income coming in. And I'm having a difficult time finding places to play tennis where we live down in New Jersey in the shore. She goes, "Maybe we should look into seeing if we could open up some more tennis courts." So I'm like, okay, people pleaser as I am, let's go do that. And I'm not blaming her. This is me. So we start the journey. We find out, yeah, you should open up more tennis courts. We do a feasibility study. They go, but just to open tennis courts, you won't make it. It won't be enough income coming in. You got to have a health club. And long story short, after 4 years plus, we went from just a tennis court to health club a full gym, basketball court, spa, pool, the whole thing. It was going to be over 100,000 square feet, $15 million project.
Wow.
Yeah. But it took us 4 to 5 years to get to that point, and then to get all of the approvals we needed from the city and the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm pouring the money in so that as soon as it's ready, because in 2005, 2006, 2007, you go to the bank, they're throwing money at you.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, great. I'm good. I'm over $3.5 million into this. We finally get all the approvals. We go to the bank. Bank says, nope, we're not lending. Things are starting to happen. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, we'll see what happens. Come September 2008. Thank you, Bernie Madoff. Thank you, subprime loans.
Yeah.
Like that, the world turns upside down, and I lose everything.
Oh my gosh.
Lose everything. Imagine one day, a few months later, you wake up and, Dad, that somebody's towing our car away. I was being repossessed. Like we stopped paying the mortgage. Eventually it was foreclosed on. And in New Jersey, it took a while for them to take the house, but it was still foreclosed on.
Yeah.
And it took me about a year to pick myself off the ground and say, okay, what am I going to do now? And I looked around and I realized I didn't love being in business. I was in business my whole life, ups and downs of it. It was just too much. So I looked back and I said, what do I like to do? And I realized I loved being involved in community events. I was the founder of the first synagogue in Eatontown, New Jersey, that's named after my brother, thanks to my father.
Hmm.
And at the time when we started in the early 90s, we were going from house to house, getting people to come for Saturday morning so that we could have 10 men, which is what we need to do the services right, to now, 30 years later, there's over 400 families there. So it's a beautiful thing. I'm not involved in it anymore, but over those first 15, 20 years, I was involved. And as a leader, we do fundraisers and things. And I found that over my whole life, that was just one part of it. I was always a leader in the community events because I learned from my parents who were always community minded. And as a leader, I was showing people that they can do whatever they could do and live their potential through this. They could help themselves move forward. And I said, you know what? I'm a life coach and I don't even realize it. So I said, okay, I'm going to become a life coach.
Yeah.
Then a couple of months before coaching was going to get started, it was my 24th wedding anniversary. And my wife says to me, I'm done. I want a divorce. I can't do this anymore. The ups and downs, I can't do it.
Well, damn.
And, I'm like, oh man, just when I thought I was getting back up, I went back down again. Maybe I should have said to her, but it's our anniversary and I didn't get you anything like that. But looking back, it was the best gift other than our 4 children she could have ever given me.
Mm.
And I think it was God's way of telling me, you want to go into life coaching. Maybe you should fix yourself first.
Well, that's who benefits the most, right? From
100%.
studying to be a life coach, because I've done it twice, two different programs, and the person that benefited the most was me.
100%. I wouldn't, if I never coach another person again, it was the greatest money I ever spent.
Totally. I get it. That's probably why, Martin, it's so popular, right? Is because people they come out the other side and they're like, wow, this is a transformation and a half.
Yep. And that's what happened to me. I went there that first weekend and they go, you don't have to stay who you think you have to stay.
Mm.
And one of the books that they recommended before going into school, they had a syllabus of books to read. Read a couple of these books. One of them was The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Fantastic.
We've had him on our show.
You did? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And when I read The Second Agreement, don't take anything personally, I felt like he was talking directly to me, giving me a secret that the whole world had been telling me my entire life. But until that moment, I wasn't ready to hear it. And it was as if he had taken me into a stadium that was fully dark and flipped on all the lights and went, oh, this is what you need to know.
Because you were ready. I've recommended that book to many people, and some of them just don't take. And then I said, you gotta work on not taking things so personally. Man, they just explode. And it's like, okay. Yeah. You're not done cooking yet, mister. You're
not ready. Yeah. So I went through life coaching, and happens to be, again, God it has a way of just letting you know he's watching you. When the school I went to, which is called IPEC, okay, they give you a right after the first weekend, they give you a peer coach, and you peer coach someone else.
Yeah.
Well, my peer coach had just come out of a divorce. So that was pretty good. I still hadn't moved out yet, and I was struggling with moving out. I finally did. And I had a coach who understood and could support me and be objective at the same time.
Nice.
Yeah. So I got through life coaching and I got through my divorce. And just about the same time I finished both, I was on a call about how to market yourself on Facebook. And the woman who was running the call said, make sure that everything on your Facebook page is correct. You don't have any bad memes or anything like that. I realized it said I was divorced. So I switched it to, I said I was married. So I switched it to divorced. Within 24 hours, I get a call from a woman in my community. I come from a very small, close-knit Jewish community in Brooklyn. She goes, "Hey, Martin, are you ready to start dating? I see that you're divorced." I'm like, "Kelly, you're married." She's like, No. I'm your matchmaker. Like, matchmaker?
Matchmaker.
What are we? Exactly. What are we, Fiddler on the Roof? She goes, "Look, we come from a small community. We take care of our own. We help single people who are ready to look. We help you find someone." I'm like, "All right, let's talk." Talk for about an hour. She goes, "Oh my God, I've never met a man so well put together after a divorce." I'm like, "All right, cool. I guess it's the coaching." She goes, "You should become a divorce coach." So originally I became a divorce recovery coach.
Wow.
Yeah, and I wrote a book on it, Recovering from Divorce. And after a few years, I realized I was helping people, and I looked in the mirror. I was the heaviest I ever was in my life because I wasn't being coached. And I allowed myself to say the things I shouldn't be saying. I can't, I don't have time and all that. But at that moment, I saw how heavy I was. I said, okay, it's time for a change. I started working out, watching a video. My friend started coaching me through going through his program, this video program, because I didn't have time to go to a gym. I was working in a dead-end job while I was still trying to build my coaching program. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. were my hours out of the house. So I said, okay, I guess I could wake up earlier and do a half-hour video. Those first 2 weeks were killer, but I got through them because I wanted it. That was my why. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to look better. And as a result, I was eating better, reading better, watching better things. And I shifted my mindset from self-conscious to self-aware. Even though I was a coach for a couple of years, and people don't realize coaches should be coached. So the best coaches have coaches.
That's true.
So now I'm doing all this stuff. And I was even meditating, and I'm ADHD. Imagine trying to get through 10 minutes of a guided meditation, even ADHD. It was tough. But I had this down.
Just takes practice, right, Markham?
Takes practice. One of these times I had this download of information that I loved my life and I wanted to show other people how to do it.
Yeah.
So I wrote for 2 hours, and out of that came the acronym for life. Live incredibly full every day.
Wow. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
And so you just learned this through trial and error and through eating up as much as you could from what other people were saying and getting involved with this. Did you find that when you were coaching, were you coaching other men, or was that your prime target, or were you also coaching women through divorce?
Actually, both. And it's interesting because you think, oh, a man coaching divorce wouldn't have too many women clients. But I think because I grew up with 4 older sisters, and I was always more comfortable around women than I were men, I was always intimidated by men because I wasn't a good athlete. And as a child, I was even picked on. Today, we look at that and we'll say we were bullied.
Yeah.
So I kind of was always, when I was younger, pretty much intimidated by men because they had bullied me. And as a matter of fact, I tell a story sometimes. You know, when you're graduating and they write a last will and testament, supposed to be funny little things they leave. You know what they left me in my 8th grade last will and testament? A box of Kleenex tissues because I cried all the time.
Oh.
So I think I just connected more with women. Sorry, Todd?
I said, those are the kinds of things that shape us, right? You can go back now and think, that was such a gift because you
Yeah.
developed that emotional side.
It's such a gift now, but when I was in it, it was.
Well, I get that.
Didn't feel like a gift then. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And my
Wow.
father would say, just don't worry about it.
Big boys don't cry. That's what I heard a lot. Don't cry.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
So
So now
Mark,
I was
you
ready to
developed
start
these-
dating.
Oh, you did
No,
start dating. Okay, good. So you
Yes,
did
a little bit more of my story. So I was ready to
someone.
start dating. And I reached out to Kelly. I go, okay, let's start dating some more. Because I was dating on and off. But now that I had this new self-awareness and self-love, that's the big part. I liked myself and I loved myself. So she calls me up one day. She says, I got someone for you. So we start dating. And before that, I dated others. And it was interesting. I'd go on dates and I would basically, thanks to coaching, learned about values. So I would see, are there values in connection with mine? Do we have similar values? Because I did realize my first marriage, I didn't have the same values.
Yeah.
And we were in a codependent relationship. I wasn't going to let that happen
stop
again.
Trying to please everybody then the second time around?
Yeah. I remember one of my things when I was going through coaching was, I'm going to take on the mantra to myself as I was building myself up that first I'm going to take care of myself. As long as I'm not hurting somebody else, I'm going to take care of myself first. So that was the building blocks for me to stop taking things personally. So one day she calls me. She goes, I got this great woman. You got to take her out. We start going out and she's checking every box. Second date, same thing. Third date. About a month into it, I said, I got to tell you something. And I don't need to hear it from you, but I need to sell it to you that I'm falling in love with you because I love who you are. And I love you see me as I am and you're not trying to change me. And 2 years later, we got married. And we've been married for almost 5 years. So now, the last part I'm going to tell you is something happened in 2020. Remember that? March 2020?
Yeah. A little bit. I have a little bit of recollection.
Right. So the world was falling. As far as everybody was concerned, everybody was running around like Chicken Little. And what's going to happen? And I looked around. It was May. 2 months into it, and we're still not really out of the house yet, even though every day I'm going shopping and wearing the gloves and the mask. And I look at my wife, I go, why is everybody worried and we're not? And I realized is that the last 10, 12 years had prepared me for anything. My mindset was ready for anything to come, even COVID. I got into Facebook and I said, guys, I get it. I know why you're feeling this way because I felt it. So I want to show you how to go from being a warrior to a warrior.
Yay, I love
and
that.
that's where the Warriors Life Code came in. That's why I wanted to say it before we talked about the cards.
Yeah. So let's talk about the cards then. What would someone find in here? Because it's a little bit like a mini book in that there's so many treasures in here. There's even some activities and some quotes and lots of information and learning to take place. And I think it's an ingenious idea to make it a card set. So how does someone use this card deck?
So what happened was I started to put my course together now. Now, after all these years of coaching other people in different areas, I realized I had come up with a lot of great techniques or developed techniques from other people that were basically in my own language. So I put together a coaching course, and I remember getting emails from the woman who helped me write my coaching, my first book. I wrote a book on recovering from divorce. And she had sent me an email about a woman who puts together card decks. She shows you how to put together card decks. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, you know, when you get emails and you just don't want to unsubscribe because something that person's saying is going to mean something to you one day.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, well, now I have a course. So I call up this woman. I go, I think I want to take your course on putting together cards. So what I did was I took my card, and basically for those of us old enough to remember, the cards are like cliff notes of my course. You know, short snippets of what's going on so that you can get an idea of what you can get by working with me.
Got it. Cool. Right. So is there a particular order? Do you need to go in order?
Well, you should.
Because they are numbered.
They are numbered only so that if somebody drops the cards.
Yeah.
Because some of them go in sequential order. Yeah. But, you know, let's talk about card number 30. Card number 30.
Okay.
Okay.
That is self-aware versus self-conscious, right?
Self-aware versus self-conscious. So I talked about this earlier. So I think it's important for people to understand the difference between the two. And I go through it for my course. So I wrote it up on the card. Self-conscious comes from a place of negative energy, guilt, conflict, doubt. Self-conscious is more outward directed. It's being more concerned about what others are thinking of you and how the situation is going to affect you. So I can go on, but that's the basic of it. Self-awareness comes from a place of positive energy, acceptance, contentment, self-assuredness. Self-awareness is more inward facing. You have an accurate and realistic understanding of how you're responding to situations and how you feel about it. So the reason I made the cards is if you're somebody who's never taken the course, it gives you an idea. But if you're somebody who has taken the course and you're struggling and you're trying to remember things, right? Imagine you pull out a card today and you go, oh yeah, this is something I got to work on today. It gives you that tangible asset for you in your bullets of that you got in your holster, as it were.
Well, it's a perfect travel size. So you
That's
don't,
right.
you don't have to take a big book with you on the airplane. You can take a deck of cards, right?
That's right.
So is that the idea then, Martin, is just to take a gander at pick one every day, but first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
And just kind of make a mental note that, hey, this is something I need to be aware of all day long.
Exactly.
Just
exactly.
like feeling groovy all day long. I do that all day.
Right. That's right. I mean, like card number 1 talks about admission, cleansing, and celebration, right? So what are you admitting? You're admitting that there's something wrong in your life at that moment and that you need to make a change. So cleansing takes you to the next step of, okay, what steps am I going to take to make those changes? The first one, Todd and I talked about it earlier. You know, it's like telling somebody don't take something personally until they're ready to admit that that's an issue. It doesn't really matter.
It won't work. And
They'll say, I can't.
Into it.
I can't. I remember I was doing a course and I sent to at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, the 4 agreements. And she texts me, she tells me, the second agreement is impossible. I said, it is if you say it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So then you do admission, then cleansing, and then celebration, because you need to celebrate the little victories along the way.
Well, like you though, Martin, I mean, your marriage probably didn't just all of a sudden one day fall apart, right?
No.
There were probably things that you weren't noticing. And so is that part of the training that you give, is how the self-awareness, I think, is probably also being aware of what's going on around you and how you're
100%.
affecting other people, right?
100%. Right.
So yeah, but that's hard not to take it personally when someone says, I don't want to be married to you anymore, right?
Yeah. 100%. No question about it. But looking back now, I do realize that I was a contributor to the failure of the marriage, but I was also a victim in the marriage. And so was she. And it was up to me to figure out what I contributed, good and bad, and make the changes where necessary. Now,
So I'm really curious. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm really curious what your relationship is like with her today.
That's a great question. We have 4 children and we have 8 grandchildren. Okay. So co-parenting is still involved because 2 of my kids are not married. One is 24 and she's high on the spectrum, but she's on the spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
So it brings some issues, usually mostly around the monetary issues. But over the last few years, because of something I learned that I've included in my book, it's not so much in here in my cards because it's a deeper thing. I told myself a new story. And this came from being coached by someone who's unbelievable. Her name is Genevieve Davis. She writes these books on magic. And magic, she's talking about taking it to the next level of the law of attraction. It's within you to create that magic within you. And she said, tell me something that's bothering you. I said, well, I would love it if my relationship with my ex-wife and my daughter were better. You know, she treats me like the devil incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, well, how about you just tell yourself a new story about that? I said, I understand what you mean. We worked on it, finally understood it. And I started to tell myself a new story. Like, she's got a lot on her plate. She has to deal with the ups and downs of what my daughter's going through and some other things. And she's away from where everybody is because she moved to Westchester. My kids live in Brooklyn, which is an hour away. And I just told myself a new story. And I said, my daughter's doing the best she can. And every time until before that, I'd call my daughter. We'd have maybe a 1-minute conversation. And I didn't tell this to anybody else. I told it to myself. That week when I called her, I had a 15-minute conversation with her. She was engaged. She was smiling. And at the end of it, I said, I'd love to come and see you, because I hadn't been there a while because she kept shutting me down. And she said, yeah, let's do that. And I started going every week, every 2 weeks to visit her. And at one of the visits, as I walked in, my ex told me, you know, she goes with you. She's doing great with you. She comes back and she takes it out on me. She goes into her room. And I was like, okay. So when I went out with my daughter, I said, Claire, please be better with mom when you come home. Don't go back into your room and shut down. So when I left, I told my ex, call me in a little while when you're private and we'll talk as I'm driving back. I have an hour drive back. So she called me and I said, first thing is, I want to thank you for the work you're doing with our daughter. And I want you to know that it's not going unnoticed. It was as if I had opened up the flood doors in a good way. And we just talked for the next hour, and she appreciated the way I recognized, you know, her sacrifices and the things she did. As a matter of fact, when Genevieve wrote a book, the next book she wrote was called Magic Words and How to Use Them. She put my story in there because of the transformation I made. She changed the names. As a matter of fact, she gave me the name Michael, which was kind of wild considering that was my brother's name.
Right.
Wow.
But just to go back a little bit, that's because you changed your way you perceived the situation, and in essence, I would say, began to vibrate at a different level that others picked up on.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It was nothing I said other than me changing the way I was looking at a situation and the way I approached it and how I spoke about it.
Right. And showed.
Yeah. And now we have a great relationship. You know, she's married. She lives an hour away. My kids live near me here, and we talk every once in a while, and we're always co-parenting in a positive way.
Awesome. So if we were to like pick a card at random.
Yeah.
So like 17, uncover, it's in the uncover section, navigate.
Right. So uncover is a 7-step acronym. I love acronyms.
I do too.
You and Jackie are cut from the same nugget. And I'll tell you this really quickly, Martin, you guys have a lot more in common than what maybe you think you do.
Oh, that's cool. I'd love to hear. So you see, number 14 talks about the 7 steps of uncover. So N is navigate. Navigate how your emotional roller coaster is holding you back. Right? Because that's a big part of it. Understanding how your emotions are controlling you. And if you can harness that emotion and you control it, now you're onto something. And that's part of my course is build your emotional strength.
Yeah. It is funny you say that it's very common in many kinds of relationships, particularly marriages, that people come into the relationship believing they'll get their partner to change over time. In fact, it reminds me of an interesting little, wasn't really a story, but it was a little bit of a riddle maybe, is that a man who marries a woman thinking she'll never change, and a woman marries a man thinking she'll change him. And neither actually comes true. That's true. That's where the conflict comes in.
Never heard that one before, but I can get it. But no, when we get married, when I got married, I was 23. She was 18, turning 19. We were together for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And we fought a lot, and we should have known. And, you know, my parents tried to show me and say, you know, this might not be, but I didn't want to hear it. I was thinking with the wrong head. I was in lust. I wasn't in love, you know, and part of me just wanted to escape being around my parents, thinking that they were controlling me when it was me controlling the situation by being a people pleaser.
Or trying Trying to control this.
Trying to control the situation. You know what I learned as I got older? My father got smarter.
Your father got smarter?
Yeah, it's because I realized he wasn't as dumb as I thought he was.
Got it. Your perspective of your father changed. Yes. Yes. That is funny.
Interesting way to look at that. I like that. That's pretty cool.
So tell us about your upcoming book.
So my upcoming book is called The Warriors Life Code. 7 steps to uncover your greatness so that you could live incredibly full every day. Life is everything I do. When I get onto Facebook, I say life. When I wake up every morning, I say life. I'm going to live incredibly full every day. And it's about practicing what I'm saying and teaching other people to do it. So the book is basically the course. It takes the cards to the next level and gives the course and some of the what we call the success activities that are in there you can download to help you. And it gives you more of my story, and it gives you stories of my clients, and along the way, understanding that you're not going to happen overnight. It's a process. So it's a great way to learn more about yourself, learn more about me through the book, and decide where do you want to go from here.
Awesome. And when do you propose, or when do you speculate that book will be released?
So in anticipation of having this call today, Jackie and I booked this call about 6 weeks ago, something. So we were trying to get the book ready. So what we did is the book is ready in pre-launch. So they can go to my site, theconnectwithmartin.com, and they can order it. And when they do, as a gift, I'll give them the first 3 chapters in advance. And hopefully by maybe the first or second week in January, it'll be fully released.
Cool.
But in the meantime, you can go there and download the first 3 chapters. And
what's that website again?
Connectwithmartin.com.
And the cards, we can get
cards are on there too. See, I was on a call with somebody one day who was helping me figure out how to write my emails and stuff. And he said, you're going to start going on podcasts and stuff like this. And you don't want to give each time something different. So why don't you just come up with a page that you can give out easily to remember? So I came up with connectwithmartin.com. I mean, he helped me. He came up with the idea, and then we developed it together. Listen, I got maybe 4 or 5 coaches in my life, different parts of my business. So different parts of my life that need me, that I need it for.
Sure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your program then. Is this a 6-week course, or is it something that is a 2 or 3 hour long and then you're done? How does that work?
So it's actually an on-demand video program where there's 6 modules. Each one have about 5 or 6 videos in them, along with the success activities attached to it, homework attached to it, that they can download. So that's what I'm offering now. And I'm about to start offering an addition to that where they can do a module and have a group coaching. So so for the people who want to do that, they can go to the coaching. They can still go to connectwithmartin.com, scroll down to the bottom and say, I want to live incredibly full every day. You'll get a link to the course, and it's on demand. But here's the beauty: you can't go to lesson 2 until you finish lesson 1 because it builds on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm noticing, Martin, that on the card, especially, life is an acronym, and you've hinted at what that acronym is, but I think I heard on another podcast that I was watching that you did, those are steps.
Well, there's one that's an acronym for steps. You're correct. But the main acronym is live incredibly full every day. Okay. But like I did, which I talked about earlier. Okay. And my book coach, even when I first came up with live incredibly full every day, she challenged me to come up with other acronyms for it. So if you look at number 23, you'll see I have a bunch of other acronyms. But also what I did is I took the Build Your Emotional Strength, that's part of my course, and broke it down into 4 steps. L, listen to your inner voice and acknowledge your feelings. Okay. And that's really because there's a difference between emotions and feelings. So your inner voice is that emotion that you're feeling at the moment. I'm angry. I'm sad, whatever it is. Then number 2, I, and there's a card in there, by the way. The card is in the deck. That card is
24, I think.
24 is a different one.
Oh.
Because I love coming up 31.
Ah.
So listen to your inner voice and acknowledge your feelings. I identify what those feelings are. And when you work in my course, you'll get a worksheet with these on it, but you'll also get a vocabulary that shows the difference between emotions and feelings, and help you say across the top is the emotions. And then what kind of feeling am I feeling? I'm angry. Well, what kind of anger? Are you enraged? Or are you just a little ticked off? So then you go through that and you figure out that's the identify your feeling. Then find out why. Question your feelings. Like you're on trial with yourself. Cross-examine yourself. And then E, engage and change and take action. And that came from something that happened to me with my wife while we were just divorced. What had happened is my son was getting married. And she was living in New Jersey at the time. I was living in New York. And the weekend before he was getting married, we sometimes do in our Jewish community, they go to the synagogue and you have a lunch for the son and you have people over for the couple. So I had thought we weren't going to do this. My son comes back on Sunday and says, Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that mommy was going to make a lunch and you weren't there. I feel so bad. I said, Caesar, it's not on you. Now, the old me would have picked up the phone right there and she would have heard about it in every which way but possible. And who would I have served at that moment? Just me. The wedding is 3 days away. Okay. If I called her up right there and freaked out on her, she would have been upset. He would have been upset. The other side, my family, everybody would have been upset. And, would have put a cloud over the wedding. So I took my advice. I said, how am I feeling? This is what I'm feeling. This is my emotion. These are my feelings. So I questioned it. I asked myself, is it helping me? Is it hurting me? I decided it is hurting me. And then I decided to take action in the future. And I waited until Friday. The wedding was on a Wednesday. I waited until Friday and I called her up and I said, listen, this is what you did. And you disrespected me to our children. You sent a message to our children that I'm not important. On and on and on I went. And it was a controlled anger as opposed to my freaking out like a nuclear reactor. And this was a defining moment at the end of the conversation, because remember, at the time, there was little things in me that might have said, let's go back together. Even neither of us were. And I ended the conversation by saying, thank you for divorcing me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow. Because that was the end. That was the last chapter in the book. She's never going to change. And if she does, our values are so different and we're different people.
Yeah. It's over. It's done.
Wow.
So that's L and I.
Oh, so L-I and then F, I questioned myself. And then E, exchange, what did I say? F is find out why. I asked myself those questions. Then E, engage and change and take action. So I took action later. Right. It didn't have to be at that moment. Right. I put it away from Monday till Friday, went to the wedding, didn't talk to anybody about it, had in the back of my mind. I mentioned it to one of my family members saying, this is what I'm going to do after the wedding. And they said, good for you. Right idea, smart idea. And then on Friday, I did it. But Wednesday, the wedding was beautiful. We marched them down together. We had a beautiful night and nobody was the wiser.
Yeah. Well, and because even if you were right in your desire to make this known early on, it would have just added all sorts of tension to the wedding. There would have been guilt, there would have been shame, there would have been worry, all this. Yeah. So exactly. And you don't want to do that to the kids that are getting married, right?
A lot of drama. There's enough drama going on during weddings. I didn't need to add to it. And it wasn't about me. The wedding is not about me. It's about my son and my daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And it's not about her.
Right.
So, I mean, that was a life lesson for me. That was another defining moment for me.
Well, another acronym you have is Warrior.
Yeah,
right?
warrior. Warrior.
Warrior. You have
Yeah.
the acronym for warrior, the warrior within you, the abundant warrior within you.
Right.
And so you've got wisdom, ask, act, and attitude, realization, recognize, imagination, optimism, and resilient. And then you've got the warrior mindset on one of these cards too, which is a lot of sort of affirmative type statements. Can I read a few of those? Because I think they're really powerful.
Go for it.
I am open and ready to be positive is the first one.
Woohoo.
I deserve to be happy. I stand up for what I believe. I am honest. Today I'm going to be my best self. Today is going to be a great day. There's a Todd Cutterback quote if I've never heard that. Yeah. So that's great too, to just, even if these affirmations or something, you pull out this card and you just say, you concentrate on one of those each day. That's enough to start changing your positivity, right? And your mindset.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea of that one is to take it out when you're starting to question your mindset of abundance, where you're not having the best day. And you need to affirm to yourself that, you know what, things like this happen. It's how I respond to it instead of how I react.
It's kind of like taking a snapshot. So I was taught to take that third party perspective, right? And to be a witness as to how I'm reacting, what I'm doing. That was huge for me. And I can create the visualization that these cards kind of do the same thing, right? They give you that third party perspective of what's going on in my, well, can we say it like this? What's going on in my heart?
Yeah, why not? What's going on in my heart at that moment? And will I allow my emotions to overtake me?
Right.
Or can I control my emotions in a way that serves me?
So is it that we control our emotions, or we become aware of how our emotions are pulling our chain?
Yeah, exactly. Pulling our chain, controlling us. We become aware. And once you start that awareness, you know, today I did a Facebook live stream on awareness leads to change. The more you're aware and accepting of what you're becoming aware, you're accepting of change.
Or a different perspective, right? Or a different way of looking at it, or a different way of, whoa, I just need to back up here a minute and see how this plays out, because I'm starting to feel that I'm reacting in a way I don't want to be that person.
Right. Just because someone starts an argument with you doesn't mean you have to take the invitation.
but you know, on the other side of that, Martin, too, we are human.
No question.
And those things will happen. It just happened to me a couple of days ago, and I was just, you know, I've been reflecting on it for days now, and haven't had the opportunity to reconvene that discussion. But we are human, and things.
That's actually something I go through as well. Is understanding. You could go back and reconvene it and look it over. But you know, something that had happened that helped me to become more self-aware, aware of it, was in the early days of the first 6-8 months of my divorce, while I was going through coaching, I realized that she had a button, something that she used to push my buttons. Okay. And whether she did it consciously or subconsciously, I'm going to say she didn't realize. Okay.
Somehow she knew exactly what to do.
Right.
That would pop you out of gear.
Exactly. And what she would say is, she'd call me up and she'd say, and now I realize she did this a lot in the marriage. Okay. It was, I don't want to fight, but right then and there, all right. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
And I would start the fight. Now she'd look back and say, you started the fight. I told you I didn't want to fight. So once I became aware of that, almost like, you know, Pavlov's dogs, conditioning them, I conditioned myself and her
use it
over time to not use those words anymore.
Here's another one that I learned that I'll share with everybody. And I learned this from Marianne Williamson. I used to hang out in the same crowds, and I read her book, Return to Love, many years ago. And she said that there's two ways people that converse with me. It's either love or it's a call for love. And when you sense that it's a call for love, that's when you switch gears. I should have used this a couple days ago. It didn't even come into my mind. But when it's a call for love, that's when you switch gears and just pour the love on. And
right.
You know, it's been my experience. And I'm humbling myself by reliving this now, because I knew I should have pulled that tool out of my pocket here a couple days ago. But
right.
It diffuses the situation instantly. It will change the whole dynamic between
100%.
the conversation.
And Todd, you might want to go to cards 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 to help you the next time.
Hey, you know what? You need to create an app, mister. You need to get these cards on an app.
I actually do have them on an app, but it's just being released now that you could look at them on an app.
I figured as much. I just had to throw it out.
Digital cards, absolutely.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
And
totally.
So for those that are wondering what are 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 13, it's my way of, remember when you were in school, or your kids were in school, and the firemen came in and taught them about fire safety? And they came home and they said, Mommy, I learned 3 words in school today for fire. What are the 3 words the kids know when the fire happens?
Stop, drop, and roll. Is that the ones you're
Stop,
referring
drop,
to?
and roll.
Oh, when you catch on fire, right?
Right.
Well, just when there is a fire. Yeah.
Right. So I was working with somebody putting my course together, and he says, well, how did you get out of this? I said, you know how stop, drop, and roll? I guess that's what I did. Stop, think, and respond.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it takes you through there. And then the last one is a scorecard as to how to see what's doing. Because what happens if in the moment, like you said, Todd, you reacted, but now you're going back, Todd, and you're saying, wait a minute, how can I do this better next time? So imagine if you blew up at the person, right? And you will go back later and there's a score. I do a whole scoring with the 1, 3, 5, which comes from when my wife was playing basketball with her son during COVID. They went to the backyard and they played a game called 5, 3, 1, which was, 5, 3, 1. So you take a foul shot, you get 5 points. You catch the ball, you get 3 points. And you make a layup, you get 1 point. If you do all 3 of them, you get 10 points. You get an extra point. So I turned it around. I said, stop. And instead of reacting, you stopped. Give yourself 1 point. Now, give yourself 3 points if you thought about, is this affecting me? Am I taking it personally or whatever? And then give yourself 5 points if you responded instead of reacted. So I said, now, the first 10 times, 20 times you do this, you are not going to change, but it's in your mind. So Todd, tomorrow you said, okay, the next day I said, why did I do this? So you give yourself 1 point because you stopped. Then you thought about it. You give yourself 3 points. Now, if you go back to the person you hurt and you give them an apology without expecting anything back, and not one of those, I'm sorry, but really, I'm sorry for what I did. And, the last lecture by, the late Randy Posh, who talked about the importance of really giving a real apology. Now, give yourself 5 points because you didn't do it in the moment, but you went back and you fixed it.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Identifying what was my part. Doesn't matter what the other person did. Doesn't matter how they pushed your buttons, right?
Right, exactly.
What was my part? And as long as I keep my side of the street clean, I'm okay with me.
Right. And you know what happens when someone comes at you hot, if you stay calm, you bring them back down.
Yeah.
Because they're expecting you to be hot back.
Yeah. That's where, if it's a call to love and you recognize that it's a call for love and you flip that around and start pouring the love on, that's exactly what that does. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Cool. Oh my goodness, my friends. It looks like we only have like about 3 minutes left. Martin, I want to thank you so much for showing up today as you. And did you have a blast?
Oh, I had a blast. I loved it. Did you guys have a blast?
Oh yeah,
That's
Jackie and I
fun.
always.
I did most of the talking. I'm always having a blast when I'm talking.
That's why it's fun. We got to hear from you.
That's only because we let you talk.
That's right.
No, I'm just kidding. Any last minute parting shot? You have a gift. We talked about the gift, but is there any last thing that you would like to address our listeners today with?
Yeah, let me find the one that had a couple of other extra alternative definitions to life. I'll leave them with this: love intensely, fiercely, and effortlessly. Or luck is innovated from experience.
Yeah.
Right. And lasting improvement favors everyone.
Huh.
So
Nice.
speak to that last one just for a second.
As you're improving yourself, everyone else will feel the ripple effect of your positivity.
Wow.
And you might just, whether they realize it or not, I don't want to say it like you're infecting them, but you're help guiding them into a new understanding and a new reality.
Well, it goes
And
back to your wedding story. The fact that you held back from,
exactly,
you held your anger back affected everybody else attending the wedding 2 or 3
right. And for me, one of the most important things I did was I didn't tell people, you see, I'm changing. You see the difference? They'll see it on their own. Just don't look for the recognition of people saying, oh, wow, you changed. They'll say it. When you really mean it's gone and it's happened.
Yeah.
Jackie, any quick takeaways? Did you have fun today? You had
I had great fun. Thank you, Martin, for your warrior to warrior conversation. It's such a big one right now. There's a lot of things we could be worried about, but it's nice to have a plan or a program we can fall back on to help us to maintain that positive mindset regardless. So thank you so much for all
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
And please let us know, Martin, when that book hits the streets, because we're going to have you back on and we'll talk about the book. We didn't really talk a whole lot about it, but I'm sure it does reflect on some of the things that we talked about today, because that's you and that's how you show up in the world.
That's right. Thank you. I definitely will.
That's about all we have time for. I hope you enjoyed the show. My biggest hope is that you will tell a friend about the show. Let them know, hey, these two really groovy people, Todd and Jackie, have some really cool guests on the show, and they talk about some really cool things and just have a blast. There's so much energy here and so much fun that you got to check them out. So make sure you tell a friend about it. Tell a friend about the show, our YouTube channel. All our shows are on the YouTube channel. You will find something that you can use on your very own life mastery journey. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it's all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.